bare necessity, but simple bare necessity. Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity.
Hey there, it's Bear and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be opening up a new series called Troupe Talk. These are going to be kind of chatty type videos where I talk about a subject and just kind of hang out. Usually I will probably try to have some coffee or tea to just kind of make it a little bit more like chill, cash, fun. Today I am drinking H&S's Vanilla Kamoro tea, one of my favorites. It is delectable and delicious and magnificent and caffeine free. So if you're looking for something to drink at, you know, 6 or 7 p.m. like I am, this might be the ticket. Very subtle, not too much. Good for introductory tea as well. If you're trying to introduce somebody to teas, kind of ease them into it a little bit because it's sweet enough to like enjoy even if you're used to like southern sweet tea. But not so sweet that it's like candy. It ain't candy. It's tea. But like, you know, you get it. And also this mug, yeah, it's from Books A Million. It's the best. I do have some notes. So today, I need to tackle a very important subject that has been something that I've wanted to talk about on my channel for a very long time. Like a very long time. Like ever since I wanted to do discussion videos, this was a discussion that I wanted to have. And now that I'm finally gonna start having discussion videos, we're gonna tackle it. My hair is doing all sorts of things, but we're gonna accept it at this point. So let's talk about tropes. So if you've been around the bookternet community, then you've heard the word trope before, and you probably know the word trope in specific contexts. So a trope is typically referred to or used to mean something that we see in books or movies that is common or recurring, but often it's used in a derogatory sense or with a negative connotation. So we're saying it usually meaning something that we don't like most of the time. Most people, when they say trope, they really mean that it's not a creative thing, is what I'm getting at. Most of the time when you hear the word trope, people are saying this isn't creative, this isn't unique, this is boring, this is unoriginal, this is, you know, something we've seen a million times, or it's something that we don't like. Like most of the time when you hear people talk about love triangles, they hate them. Just all the time. They say, I hate love triangles, or I hate chosen one, or I hate this, I hate that. And so we hear it in like a negative connotation every time we hear it, pretty much. We rarely hear people say that I love this trope. Especially, it was worse in the past than it is now. I think that some content creators have started coming forward to say, oh, this is a trope that everyone else hates, but I love. Or, you know, there are certain things like that, like the unpopular opinions tag has a question, I believe, that is specific to a trope. Put ourselves in this box and put authors in this box that they can't create because we've limited them to think that anything that's been done before cannot be done in a creative way. And furthermore, we've put ourselves in this box of the idea that a trope is a negative thing inherently when it's actually not. So we're going to talk about that today. I have notes. I have things to say. So before we begin, a definition. The word trope is defined as a figurative or metaphorical use of a word or expression. Also defined as a significant or recurrent theme, motif. So, what is a motif, you may wonder? A motif is a distinctive feature or dominant idea in an artistic or literary composition. in those original definitions of this word, there is no negative connotation. It's simply saying that it's something like a metaphor that we see often. Or it's a metaphorical use of a word or a phrase. So, you know, it's not really saying even that a trope is inherently a commonly used thing like a love triangle. It's not even saying that in this first definition. In the second definition we did see a featuring idea, a dominant idea within a work of art or literature. And that, to me, is interesting because we use this word in a completely different context than it being an idea or a dominant theme. We don't use it to refer to motifs. We don't use it to refer to themes. We use it to refer to a category of a thing. A category of a romance. So a specific kind of romantic plot or a plot device. That's more what we use it to refer to is plot and character devices. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a minute. So here's the one definition that I found for trope that actually fits a little bit more closely to how we use the word today. A convention or device that establishes a predictable or stereotypical representation of a character, setting, or scenario in a creative work. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe this definition has kind of been pulled forward over time. For this particular word, is that it frustrates me to no end. Not because I can't appreciate the need to identify what plot devices are in a more broad sense, because it's not always a plot device. Like a love triangle is a plot device, but the chosen one trope is kind of a plot device, but also kind of a character device. The Murphy Napier this past month did a video about the big guy, and she did another video about some other things that she really likes. And those are character devices, they're not plot devices. So using the term plot device doesn't really encompass everything that the word trope has come to encompass. However, the word plot device does not have a negative connotation, whereas the word trope does, due to the way that we've used it in the book community. And in the writing community, to be honest, it's kind of become a negative thing due to the way that we refer to it in the book community. I don't think it's the writing community's fault. I think it's the book community's fault. But that's another story. 3 out of the 4 definitions for the word trope that I found were about literary devices. Basically themes, metaphorical speech, or figurative speech, motifs, things like that, rather than being about plot devices, stereotypes, limited to one use of the word, which is a little interesting to me. I found interesting simply for the fact that, you know, there are three other things that all kind of lead in one direction, and then we go with the one. I just think that's interesting that that's how we do things as people anyway, that we take what we want from something and then we continue going with it until it becomes the normal. We take the one we like and then we just run with it. And that's, you know, what is expected and what is normal and what is assumed out of all contexts from then on. Why I hate the concept of using this definition. Firstly, this promotes the idea that a work is stereotypical because of the use of tropes. Meaning that a book, if it has a trope in it, is considered stereotypical a lot of times. Especially when it comes to within the synopsis of a story. If you pitch a book to somebody and they're like, oh, so it's like this, or oh, it's like that. And you've heard people do that to you when you tell them that a book has vampires in it. Oh, it's Twilight. Or when you tell them that a book has Greek mythology, oh, it's Percy Jackson. When you tell them that a book has magic, they're like, oh, so it's Harry Potter. You know, so like people already do that, and you've experienced that, but what we don't realize as readers is that we're doing the exact same thing to authors, because we assume that we don't like certain things. And yes, it's true that over time you're going to recognize things you do and don't like, but just because it's a love triangle doesn't mean I'm going to hate it. Of why I hate the concept of using this definition. The term is generally used for only the most broadly known of those, or of these devices. So specifically the love triangle, the chosen one, second chance romance, hate to love. Those are things we all are familiar with in the book community, and we've heard several times, quite a few times, dozens, millions of times, millions and billions and billions and billions. So that said, I'm sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face. Okay, so that said, there are tropes that are more micro than that. They're very, very tiny little things that we see flashes of in a book. It could be as simple as a character that likes to journal. A trope can be an artist character. It could be a musician, it could be a dancer, it could be a martial artist, it could be a performer, it could be a cook, it could be an athlete, it could be so many things. It is not limited to what we've limited it to be, but we only see it in this broad umbrella thing that is widely discussed. Rather than the micro bits of tropes that really do exist, we don't really talk about those unless we're doing like a recommendations video or something. We don't really discuss the little things that could make somebody really love a book, because we're so focused on the big things that everybody knows and talks about all the time that could make somebody love or hate a book. But there's all these little other things that are inside it that are tropes that we're not even referring to. Because a distinctive feature or dominant idea can refer to parts of a character's personality, their hobbies, things like that. That's also included in that. Number 3 also has a negative connotation. The use of the term stereotype in the definition reflects that. So what I mean by this is that we use the term trope specifically to refer to something negative. And this is even reflected in the newest definition of the term. The newest definition is used, or refers to it, using the word stereotype. And stereotypes are bad, inherently understood as a negative thing. Stereotyping is something we don't want to do. And yet we use a term that is defined with a word that we don't like. What else can I say? It has a negative connotation even in the definition itself, not just in how we've been using the word, but in how we've chosen to define our newest use of that word. I need another sip of tea. Because certain tropes are more largely disliked, not because they're inherently bad, but rather because they have often been poorly executed, are used overly frequently, or are widely known of, or for some other reason. Because something has a negative impact in general, or it's because something that is generally disliked because of those reasons, we assume that it's a bad thing because it's so often used to refer to things that are understood in general as most of the time bad. Like, most people would tend to agree that most love triangles are pretty crappy. I'm saying that I don't really like love triangles. I've read maybe one. I think only one, maybe another at some point, but I think only the one that I've really enjoyed, and that's because of how it was done. I haven't really enjoyed any other love triangle ever that I'm aware of. Most of them make me irritated and I can't stand them because reasons. You know, we're saying that it's a stereotype, but actually it's just a way for us to connect with a story because it's something that we've seen exist in both the real world and in literature. It's true. People become friends and they become lovers all the time in real life. People get stuck between two different people and they don't know what they want to do with themselves in real life too. I've seen it. I've seen it. It's real. It happens. But even then, like, it's partially because I get frustrated with people in real life too that are the same way. So it still frustrates me in real life or in media, either way. So I don't think you can even say that it's love triangle's fault as a trope and as a literary device, because it's just love triangles as a whole, whether it's literature or in real life, that frustrate me. So that said, consider that as well, that what you think about a trope, maybe it's not to do with the trope, maybe it's to do with the idea or the concept behind it in general. So just because we don't necessarily like to read about it doesn't mean that it's not a decent thing to use or a decent device to use sometimes. It just means that it's not a device that we appreciate because it's not super common, or maybe it's something that annoys us or frustrates us. It's a device. It's a way of building our characters and our world and our plot by using these different things that we see and experience in life and in other stories. So there's nothing wrong with them. So because in general people hate love triangles doesn't mean that you have to hate them. You could eat up that drama and you could relate to or understand the circumstance that a character is in to the point where it's something that you enjoy, and that's okay. I don't feel the same way. That's okay. I don't have to agree with you. But because so many people sit here and harp on and on and on about love triangles and say that they suck and they're the worst thing ever and blah blah blah, you feel like you can't come out and be honest and say I love them because everybody else is hating on them. And so you're kind of pushed into this idea that it's bad literature when it's not. It's not bad literature because it has a love triangle. That doesn't make it a bad book. That just makes it maybe not a book for most people. Or maybe, you know, the love triangle itself was poorly executed, and that could be the problem. Because if they didn't learn anything out of the situation, if nobody grew, if there was no true resolution, that kind of thing, that's a different situation, you know? That's different. But if it works out in the end, if somebody learns a lesson, if they figure it out, if, you know, whatever, then it could be good. But if it's, you know, does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. I hope I'm coming across to you guys. Okay, so all of that said, I want to tell you what word I use instead of saying trope. And if you've watched my videos, then you will have heard me say this word before, and that is archetype. I use the word archetype in place of the word trope. So let's talk about why. So first, the definition. An archetype is defined as the original pattern or model from which all things of the same kind are copied or on which they are based. A model, or the first form. Prototype. Another definition: a collectively inherited unconscious idea, pattern of thought, image, etc., universally presented in all psyches, yeah, words. I wrote this a little bit close to the edge of the page, and my handwriting gets worse when I get off the page a little bit, you know. There's a specific kind of psychology that this relates to, but I can't remember how to pronounce it. Jungian? I think, maybe. Basically, these two definitions fit, archetype fits so much better than trope for what we're actually trying to say. Because we're not referring to a stereotype of a book. We're referring to a device. We're referring to a prototype, a model of a relationship type or a character. We're referring to a model of a plot. We're referring to a model, an idea, a concept that is universally understood. That when I say love triangle, people know what that means because it's become an understood thing. When I tell you it's a hate to love romance, I don't have to break that down for you to figure out that the characters first hate each other and then they become lovers in some way. Or become romantically involved in some way. You know, like, I don't have to break that down for you. And so to me, this makes so much more sense than saying a stereotype. Because, like, I've broken my notebook. We've crafted this idea that an author can't write a chosen one that I like. Or that an author, you can't make me like a love triangle. But really though, is that true? Just because you generally don't prefer the way that a specific device has been typically or most frequently used does not necessarily mean that you dislike the device. You like the use of the device most often. And I can prove that with my own experiences because I have hated every love triangle I've read with the exception of The Infernal Devices, and it was because of the way it was written. Cassandra Clare has blown it out of the water with her love triangles. I have never been disappointed because of the way that she chose to present things, and the characters figured it out. Like, even with Simon and Jace and Clary, when there was a little bit of mixing around in that department, when it resolved, it made sense, and they figured out why this person and this person didn't work together. It was because that was never like the kind of love that they had for each other. And so it worked out in the end, right? But we also had that shift in understanding of the relationship. If that's the case, I hate love triangle. I don't usually like chosen one. But there have been times that it's been done in a way that I've enjoyed. Tropes aren't bad. Tropes are actually archetypes, and we've been defining them by a term. I would like to list off a few synonyms for the word archetype so that you can get an even better idea of how this word fits much better than trope does. Synonyms of archetype include form, original, prototype, ideal, paradigm, standard, model, prime example, perfect specimen, pattern, classic exemplar. So that's why I like the word archetype. That's why I hate the word trope. And that's why you won't hear me refer to something as a trope unless I'm trying to make sure that you know what I'm talking about. Because I know that not everybody is going to know what I mean when I say archetype is actually trope without the negativity that's attached to it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was long. Let me know in the comments what you think about this topic. I would love to know. Make sure that you're kind to each other in the comments if you have any negative thoughts or any like disagreements with anything. Like, be kind about it. Don't be dumb. Because I don't have room for that in my life. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, whatever time it is for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video. I will see you tomorrow with another BookTube Beta video. Peace out, Bear Scouts.
About your worries and your stress. I mean a bare necessity. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, with just the bare necessities of life.
Yeah, man.